we are actually at a very interesting chapter. We initially wanted to do a little dance performance on it, but it didn't happen. But it's the universal form, where Krishna is going to actually reveal his universal form, because Arjuna makes a request to him and he desires to see that form of Krishna. And it's a very, very intense form, to say the least. And how Arjuna then responds to him by saying that he actually prefers the sweet and attractive feature of Krishna in his two-handed form. And so there are many verses. So in these verses, it's a chapter. So we'll just read through the verses, and the main theme of this chapter is Krishna in the feature of time. And he says that how, time he is, right? The great destroyer of everything. So we'll explore this concept of time, because Bhagavad-Gita actually has 5 main topics, and out of those 5 topics, Kala or time is actually a very key topic. And so today we'll spend time, and it's probably going to go on until Monday. We'll spend time and we'll look at Kala as a concept, which is actually a really important concept in Bhagavad Gita, but I would imagine it's also extremely important for us, right? So time is, it's everywhere. We are dealing with it on a moment-to-moment basis.
So we just finished chapter 10. We haven't finished it, but we finished the Chatushloki from chapter 10, where Krishna gives him the essential knowledge of the whole Vedas, actually. And after receiving, it's not going. I don't know screen, so we can read. So we'll come back on not Monday. Yeah, we are doing the Jeopardy tomorrow.
The Jeopardy is tomorrow.
So you guys, please read the verses from the 10th chapter. So the universal form. Arjuna said, "By my hearing the instructions you have kindly given me about these most confidential spiritual subjects, my illusion has now been dispelled."
O Lotus-eyed one, I have heard from you in detail about the appearance and disappearance of every living entity, and have realized your inexhaustible glories.
O greatest of all personalities, O supreme form, though I see you here before me in your actual position, as you have described yourself, I wish to see how you have entered into this cosmic manifestation. I want to see that form of yours. So in the 10th chapter, Krishna describes in great detail how he's the best of everything, and how anything that we see majestic or great in this material world, it is but a spark of his magnificence or his potency. So Arjuna now wants to see this great cosmic form of Krishna, by which he's entered everything, and by which he's the best of everything, and by which he's sustaining everything. If you think that I am able to behold your cosmic form, O my Lord, O Master of all mystic power, then kindly show me that unlimited universal self.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, O son of Pritha, see now my opulences, hundreds of thousands of varied, divine and multicolored forms.
O best of the Bharatas, see here the different manifestations of Adityas, Vasus, Rudras, Ashwini Kumaras, and all the other demigods. Behold the many wonderful things which no one has ever seen or heard of before."
O Arjuna, whatever you wish to see, behold at once in this body of mine. This universal form can show you whatever you now desire to see and whatever you may want to see in the future. Everything moving and non-moving is here completely in one place.
So this is a very fascinating aspect of universal form. It's not just a form which is like we see a picture of somebody, but this is a form where like scientists talk about space-time continuum, where they merge together. So here Arjuna is given this opportunity to see this ultimate space-time continuum, where he can see everything from the past, everything from the future in one place, and everything in the universe also, he can see that one particular place. So everything comes together in that place. And it's kind of mind-blowing to even imagine something like that. Like, for example, the whole Milky Way galaxy, you can see it right in front of you.
Even more than that, actually, much, much more.
Yeah, I mean, this is just
Yeah.
an example of an aspect of the universe.
That you cannot see me with your present eyes. Therefore, I give you divine eyes. Behold my mystic opulence.
So these divine eyes are basically special eyes that Krishna gives, or vision Krishna gives to Arjuna. Arjuna already has divine eyes because he's seeing Krishna face to face. So he has transcendental eyes. And this divine eyes basically just means that he's kind of, in one sense, he's downgrading Arjuna's vision so he can actually see this material universal form.
Because for the devotees, see, this is actually, one of the conceptions that people have, that the universal form is actually greater. And that's why Arjuna wanted to see it. It's not that. Prabhupada describes that how, people always like to pose themselves as Krishna, right? So, by getting Krishna to reveal the universal form, he's establishing the fact that Krishna is not an ordinary living entity. But for a devotee, he's not so interested, is not so enamored by this form. So Sanjaya said, O king, having spoken thus, the supreme lord of all mystic power, the personality of Godhead, displayed his universal form to Arjuna.
So, because Krishna is transcendental, so this universal form is actually it is described in the Bhagavatam in great detail that this universal form is basically a material form of Krishna. And it is temporary in that sense, because just like the universe is temporary, so this universal form is also temporary. But like the super soul is permanent. Super soul is a complete expansion of Krishna, whereas the universal form is just a material expansion of Krishna. It allows somebody who do not have a spiritual affinity for Krishna, but they have great affinity to see Krishna's power. They're attracted by this universe. So Krishna allows somebody to see his universal form in that sense, or understand his universal form.
Arjuna saw in that universal form unlimited mouths, unlimited eyes, unlimited wonderful visions. The form was decorated with many celestial ornaments and bore many divine upraised weapons. He wore celestial garlands and garments, and many divine scents were smeared over his body. All was wondrous, brilliant, unlimited, all expanding.
If hundreds of thousands of suns were to rise at once into the sky, their radiance might resemble the effulgence of the Supreme Person in that universal form.
It's brilliant, right? At that time, Arjuna could see in the universal form of the Lord the unlimited expansions of the universe situated in one place, although divided into many, many thousands.
Then, bewildered and astonished, his hair standing on end, Arjuna bowed his head to offer obeisances and with folded hands began to pray to the Supreme Lord.
Arjuna said, My dear Lord Krishna, I see assembled in your body all the demigods and various other living entities. I see Brahma sitting on the lotus flower, as well as Lord Shiva, and all the sages and divine serpents.
So this kind of shows how the different great personalities of this universe, they are just part of Krishna's universal body. And everything is part of Krishna's universal form in this world. O Lord of the universe, O universal form, I see in your body many, many arms, bellies, mouths, and eyes, expanded everywhere, without limit. I see in you no end, no middle, and no beginning.
Your form is difficult to see because of its glaring effulgence, spreading on all sides like blazing fire, or the immeasurable radiance of the sun. Yet I see this glowing form everywhere, adorned with various crowns, clubs, and discs.
You are the supreme primal objective. You are the ultimate resting place of all this universe. You are inexhaustible and you are the oldest. You are the maintainer of the eternal religion, the personality of Godhead. This is my opinion.
You are without origin, middle, or end. Your glory is unlimited. You have numberless arms, and the sun and the moon are your eyes. I see you with blazing fire coming forth from your mouth, burning this entire universe by your own radiance.
Although you are one, you spread throughout the sky and the planets and all the space between. O Great One, seeing this wondrous and terrible form, all the planetary systems are perturbed.
All the host of demigods are surrendering before you and entering into you. Some of them, very much afraid, are offering prayers with folded hands. Host of great sages and perfected beings crying, all peace, are praying to you by singing the Vedic hymns.
I was just thinking how the space between Krishna is spread everywhere, and the scientists there, I guess, figuring out how the empty space also has mass. And it's not just empty. So there is something in that space, and Krishna is saying that I am everywhere in that space also.
I was also thinking as we are reading this, Well, it's going to come up. I think I'll mention this point later. All the various manifestations of Lord Shiva, the Adityas, Vasus, Sadhyas, Vishwadevas, the two Ashwis, the Maruts, the forefathers, the Gandharvas, the Yakshas, the Asuras, and the perfected demigods are beholding you in wonder.
So these are like different higher living entities from different higher planets. There are 14 planetary systems in the universe. And he's naming some of the living beings from the different planetary systems. O mighty armed one, all the planets with their demigods are disturbed at seeing your great form, with his many faces, eyes, arms, thighs, legs, and bellies, and your many terrible teeth. And as they are disturbed, so am I.
O all-pervading Vishnu, seeing you with your many radiant colors, touching the sky, your gaping mouth, and your great glowing eyes, my mind is perturbed by fear. I can no longer maintain my steadiness or equilibrium of mind.
O Lord of Lords, O refuge of the worlds, please be gracious to me. I cannot keep my balance seeing thus your blazing death-like faces and awful teeth. In all directions I am bewildered. So this universal form is actually very ferocious because you're seeing every aspect of this universe. And in this material world is a ghastly place. So this universal form is also very ghastly.
All the sons of Dhritarashtra, along with their allied kings, and Bhishma, Drona, Karna, and our chief soldiers are all rushing into your fearful mouth. And some I see trapped with heads smashed between your teeth.
So this is kind of a forecast of what's going to happen in the battle, that all the great warriors, they are already killed by Krishna. Krishna says, I've already killed them. You take the credit. So he's seeing the future. As the many waves of the rivers flow into the ocean, so do all these great warriors enter, blazing into your mouths.
I see all people rushing full speed into your mouth as moths dash to destruction in a blazing fire.
So this is also us. We are also actually dashing into this mouth of this universal form. Some point will also be devoured by this universal form. O Vishnu, I see you devouring all people from all sides with your flaming mouths, covering all the universe with your effulgence. You are manifest with terrible scorching rays.
O Lord of Lords, so fierce of form, please tell me who you are. I offer my obeisances unto you. Please be gracious to me. You are the primal Lord. I want to know about you, for I do not know what your mission is.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Time I am, the great destroyer of the worlds, and I have come here to destroy all people. With the exception of you, the Pandavas, all the soldiers here on both sides will be slain. So here Krishna is introducing himself as Kala or time. We'll talk about that.
Therefore, get up, prepare to fight and win glory. Conquer your enemies and enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement, and you, Sabyasachi, can be but an instrument in the fight.
I guess this is the purpose of every living entity is to become an instrument in Krishna's hands. And the more we become an instrument, the more we attain our original spiritual nature. Humility means to become an instrument in Krishna's hands. Rather, what happens is in this material world, we are so conditioned that we want to make Krishna an instrument in our enjoyment, and we want to use him for our sense gratification.
So we'll stop here and then we'll continue the reading of the next verses in the next session. But I was just thinking that how, in this section we see, right, that for me also, whenever we have read like any Upanishadic text, or even like this text, you really come to appreciate that we see Krishna in such an approachable and such a lovable manner, right? And we hear about how, this Govardhan thief goes and steals and, he wants to go and steal, and such an intimate exchange. And then you see this other side. And it's just like Arjuna, is feeling bewildered. And, it's a little hard. And Mother Yashoda also gets to see this, and she doesn't like it. And then Krishna immediately becomes the little boy that she can love. So that means that God has so many different forms, and depending on our particular mood, he can reveal himself to us in that particular way.
Yeah.
But then one can see that this mood of Krishna, though it may inspire some awe and fear, it's hard to inspire, like love, right? Intimate love.
I see that just by hearing about the universal form, Delia has put on a blanket.
Also, another point to consider is that Lord Shiva is, actually, when we get to that slide, we'll talk about it. Okay.
So, there are so many things to talk about in the universal form, but this is the main thing that Krishna is bringing out, that he is time. Arjuna asks him to introduce himself, this ferocious form, and Krishna says, Kalo Asmi, that I am time. So this universal form, you can also think of this universal form as time.
So, so we have a
This was a famous cartoon that was made, I think, a few
and
decades
they
ago.
actually made a movie on this later.
Yeah.
It's called In Time. So you have to increase the volume.
You've wasted your life. You once had ambition, but a mind-numbing dead-end job gradually helped burn that away. You're running out of time. What's the solution? Buy some more. That's right, in time. By the hour, by the week, by the year. However much you want, we'll give you a great deal. Just imagine it. An extra 2 weeks to get that essay done. An extra 2 months to get in shape. An extra 2 years to spend with your family before you die. Buy our time. It's not inferior time, it's good quality time. Summer evenings, eventful mornings, classic winters. I'd like to sell some of my time, please.
Okay, sir, how much are you wanting to give us today?
Well, I'm thinking about 10 years. How much will I get for that?
We pay £50 per year, so that will be £500.
Oh, okay. Well, what do I need to do?
Just step into the box and I'll put it through on the computer.
Comes out with old.
At this rate, we'll have to sell some more next week.
It's either that or we lose the house.
I just need about £100 until Tuesday.
But Mom, I don't want to sell any more of my time.
So, the idea being that, there is a whole understanding, and then later they actually made a Hollywood movie on this idea that time is a commodity, right? And it's a commodity which is in great demand and scarce supply. It's limited, right? And so it's, you say, right, that time is money. And so you can actually sell. What if you could buy time and you could sell time, right? So just
So this question about what is time, it has puzzled thinkers and philosophers for countless years, and I mean nobody has any satisfactory definition of what time is.
It's actually quite interesting, right? Because we're continuously driven by it. But then what exactly it is, it's something quite amazing. And so there is Eva Braun who says that why don't know, what is it? We don't know what that is.
Yeah, we don't know what that is, which I tell, save, spend, mark, waste, and even kill every day of my life with perfect aplomb.
And then this is Harvey McKay who says, time is free, but it is priceless. You can't own it, but you can use it. Actually, this could be a nice riddle. What is the one thing you cannot own, but you can use? What's the one thing that you can keep, that you cannot keep, but you can spend? What's the one thing that once you've lost it, you can never get it back?
Wow.
And so that would be time. I especially like Einstein's quote here. Go ahead.
Time is what prevents everything from happening at once.
Yeah, so if you think about it, right, it's just time that is separating us from death,
From
right?
becoming old.
From becoming old or whatever it is. It's just time. St. Augustine said that he knew what time was as long as no one asked him to explain it. He said that time is a property of the universe, created by God, a property that did not exist before the creation.
So this is something like linking time to the point of creation, or when the universe came into being. This is again, all the comments here, they are kind of guesses of what time is.
So this is a whole documentary on time by Michio Kaku, and you can watch this on your own time, but we just wanted to, I guess, yeah, just a little clip here, just to show that how.
And the immutability of time is wrong. And if we can be wrong about something as basic and as fundamental as this, then in what other ways might we be mistaken? Time has intrigued humanity throughout history. More than 1,500 years ago, a former heretic turned Christian bishop wrote a treatise on time that's as provocative today as when it was first written.
What we have here is the first English translation of Augustine's Confessions. Augustine was a 4th century philosopher and theologian, and the Confessions is his autobiography. But besides relating incidents in his life, it also contains some fascinating reflections on the nature of time. And he starts with a very commonplace reflection, that time consists of time past, time present, and time future. But, says Augustine, the future does not yet exist, the past no longer exists, and the present takes up no time at all. So how then can time exist?
Over 1,500 years later, the mysteries of time continue to preoccupy philosophers. But there's one thing most of them are in agreement about.
Time is very paradoxical. It involves notions of eternity, of infinity, of beginnings and endings. All these are extremely difficult notions to grasp. But that doesn't mean to say that we have to banish temporal order. It seems to me that we can still make sense of time at...
So yeah, we can see how,
The more you think about time, the more difficult it becomes to understand.
Yeah, and it's, we could understand in one sense that we're continuously struggling. Our fears are connected to time, right? Our anxieties are connected.
Like what will happen?
What will happen? How long? Like right now we're in Corona, and 6 months have gone by. And all we're really doing is, we are being carried through the passage of time, right? And every day, one day at a time, we're feeling the weight of this passage of time. So it's actually quite amazing. So then what is time? This is time is mystical. It erodes mountains, evaporates oceans, obliterates planets, extinguishes the sun, presides over every being in creation, from womb to the tomb. Nothing and no one can alter it for even a moment. Conquerors, billionaires, champions, and geniuses all must eventually accede to it and surrender everything they have accumulated. No scientific achievements or technological breakthrough can alter it. Beauty cannot seduce it, bribe cannot entice it, brains cannot deceive it, entire military arsenal cannot stop. Yet time is elusive. It cannot be seen, touched, tasted, smelled, or heard. With every tick of clock's second hand, time is plundering our lives like a master thief.
This is a quote by Radhanath Swami, the disciple of Srila Prabhupada.
And you can see that, right? Prabhupada says that if we sometimes people say, well, I don't really believe in God, right? But then, at the time of death and, in front of time, one has to surrender. It doesn't matter how powerful great people like Napoleon or even Hitler or, all these great, big, powerful people have come and they have not been able to stand in front of the influence of time. So this is actually a story of Akbar and Birbal, where, Akbar was this great Mughal king, and Birbal was just this really intelligent, very wise person. And so he asked this question. He actually asked him 3 questions. He said, how do you see God? What does God eat? And then what does God do? So we'll talk about what does God do. So, this was in a royal court, and so Akbar wanted to know what does God really do? So then Birbal said, in order for me to answer this question, you have to actually come off the throne and come and stand near me so that I can let you know. So Akbar gets off the throne and he comes down, and then Birbal says, and now I actually have to go and I have to sit on this throne. And so everybody is like a little shocked because nobody can really dare, to go and sit on the throne of this great emperor. But Akbar, he really believes and trusts like Birbal's intelligence, and he really wants to know the answer. So he says, all right, go ahead. So then Birbal goes ahead and he sits on the throne, and then he says, this is what God does, that he makes a king a minister, and he makes a minister a king. And so, of course, the feature of God that Birbal is talking about in this is this feature of kala, or time, right? So in this feature, this is what happens, that great civilizations come, they stay for some time, like they say, right, that for England, they used to say that the sun doesn't set on the British Empire, and yet the sun did set. Right.
Probably the sun now never rises in the
now they don't get sun at all.
They don't get sun. And I remember when we went to Europe and we saw these great this whole Roman. Remember we went to all these different places, and then now we just sit there and we see these ruins, And so this is the nature of time, that things happen they come up and then they get destroyed. So this was Birbal's response.
This is another beautiful prayer by Shakespeare.
Not a prayer.
Oh, sorry, poem. I think of it as a prayer also. Anybody like to read it?
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, go ahead, read it.
Devouring time, blunt thou the lion's paws, and make the earth devour her own sweet brood. Pluck the keen teeth from the fierce tiger's jaws, and burn the long-lived phoenix in her blood. Make glad and sorry seasons as thou fleetest, and do whatever thou wilt, swift-footed time, to the wide world and all her fading sweets. But I forbid thee one most heinous crime. O carve not with thou hours my love's fair brow, nor draw no lines there with thine antique pen. Him in thy course untainted to do allow, for beauty's pattern to succeeding men. Yet do thy worst old time despite thy wrong. My love shall in my verse ever live young.
Thank you.
It's really like, that how it is blunt, the paws of the lion. And the phoenix is always looking to rise again and again, and even that doesn't sustain or doesn't, make it through. So, and then yet, there is a request, that we do desire that it doesn't age, those that we love, and yet, it's something that we are completely helpless, what is it? Time and tide wait for none. And everyone has, and everyone has to finally get defeated by time, or, and then now this is the other part of it. Well,
so I guess people have been thinking about what time is, and this is from our scriptures and Bhagavatam and our teachers. Vedas, they give actually a great definition and great description of what time is. And time is, and you'll see that how time is, Krishna says, I am time. So time is actually an energy of Krishna, is imperceptible energy of Krishna. Or you can think of another way, time is like an impersonal expansion of Krishna, right? And therefore is just like Krishna is impossible to understand, therefore time is also impossible to understand.
And just like, Krishna says, right, that it's this energy of mine is impossible to overcome. So time actually represents, that energy that is impossible to overcome. So time is that which awakens the fate of beings and necessary for the fruition of their karmas.
So because when a living entity comes to this material world, and in order for the living entity to enjoy and go through the cycle of whatever birth and death and enjoy the fruits of their fate, time is necessary, because time is tied to everything, like cycle of birth and death. Time is tied to facing the consequences of our action, which what karma is. Fate is also an accumulation of our karmic reactions. So everything actually needs time to happen. So this is one way to look at time, but you'll see that none of these definitions actually ultimately fully define time.
That's what I was thinking. I think you had something else that comes later, right?
Right, but again, it's that time is a property-less. Time is, you can only define time by its impact on other things.
You were making this point, which was such a good point, that, even our reference to the sun, right? You were saying, right, that how, we measure.
Oh yeah, that's going to come up in the next slide.
Okay.
So the second point is that time both moves the creation from step to step and is the context for the sequence of those steps. So this is very important, because when the universe is created,
I feel that we should first talk about that and then come back to this, because then it'll make more sense. So let's look at this, because this is where, once you understand this, then, the other things will sort of fall in place. So this is what's going on. So Lord Krishna expands into this Vishnu form. And Vishnu is lying in this puzzle ocean, which is called the Garbhodaka ocean. I'm sorry, the Karana ocean. And in that ocean, he's simply breathing, right? And he's lying in this yoga nidra, in this divine sleep. And as he breathes out, what happens? So many universes come out, right, from the pores of his skin. And when he breathes in, all those universes, they come back into his body.
Yeah. And then inside each universe, there is nothing there. Even before the universes come out, the material nature is present in unmanifest form, which means it is invisible and then nothing is there. So when the Supreme Lord glances on this unmanifested material nature, which is called Pradhana, then the universes actually start coming out. And that glance of the Vishnu on this unmanifest material nature, that is actually time, that glance.
And so, when the Supreme Lord, Krishna, he actually never touches matter. So matter is a separated energy according to the Bhagavad understanding. So, so that glance is actually carried by Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva is an expansion of Krishna that comes in contact with matter. So in a sense, when Krishna says that I am time, so that time and that glance and Lord Shiva, they're actually identical. So the glance of Lord Vishnu and the time factor and Lord Shiva, they're identical. And so this is, and actually what happens is it's only because of that glance, it's because of this time factor that homogeneous mass of material, matter, whatever it is, it gets agitated, right? And that's when things actually start rolling. So time is also sort of like the dice, right? That gets the game
going.
And that is actually the glance of Lord Krishna. And within that glance of Lord Vishnu, also there is another aspect, which is that it also impregnates that mass of matter with all the living entities who are supposed to take birth in this particular cycle.
So all the living entities, they're lying dormant or hibernating inside the body of Mahavishnu after the previous annihilation. And through that glance, all these living entities, they are basically transplanted into different universes. So he's glancing simultaneously at all the universes. And through that glance, different living entities are sent to different universes according to their karma. And so this glance is very powerful, and that is what time is.
So like, I think one of the scientists mentioned, right, that this time actually starts before creation.
At the time of
creation. So we can see that it's actually at the time of creation, because the spiritual world is actually conspicuous. Time is absent. There's no time in the spiritual realm. Time, as we understand it, which means that, it starts as a linear sense of time, that it's starting and then it continues, and there's a past, present, and future. That is very much something that is very specific to the material experience.
Because, time means, in the material world, time means there is a beginning to something, and then there is a period of being something, and then there is end to something. So that concept is so ingrained in us that's why we are always looking for the beginning or end of something. And that's why we ask this question: when did God come into being? Because we want the beginning of something. We are actually, you can see how deeply ingrained within us time is. Even when we are thinking, even our thoughts, they also require time.
Yeah.
Right? So everything, either gross or subtle that we do, everything requires time.
Actually, our entire, if one had to think in terms of what it means to be conditioned in this material world, and what does it mean to be a product of matter, then one could see that means to be conditioned by time and space.
Controlled.
And be controlled by that, right? So that is actually conditional life. And the Sanskrit word for that is Nitya Badha, which means that eternally conditioned, right? Which means that we are completely within the clutches of this time factor of Lord Vishnu.
So it's very interesting that how from the time, like initially the universe comes out, and then all the 5 elements are created. Like, for example, the sense of sound is created. Please mute yourself.
Okay, yeah.
So, like, first sound is created, and with sound, the ear is created and air is created, and then fire is created, and then eyes are created, and so for every element, the corresponding sense organ is also created. But everything requires time. So time is that ingredient which makes, like, sound produce air, and air produce the ear, and then from that the next element is created, and the next element is created, and the next element is created.
It's almost like it's the catalyst, like any chemical reaction.
Yeah.
You need something for it to continue, right?
Yeah.
For that reaction.
But for every element, there is a sense organ. Like, for example, for the sight, eyes are there. But time is the only element for which there is no sense organ. You don't have any apparatus that has been created to actually perceive time. We can perceive like air with our skin, we can perceive smell with our nose, but there is no apparatus that is created to perceive time. So it's a very, very unique element, although it's counted amongst the 25 original elements, but there is no apparatus to sense it.
Now, what we are really sensing, and I think that was a conversation we had earlier on, what we're really sensing is how matter is moving, right?
It's impacting other elements.
Yeah.
And then we measure time, so that slide is coming up.
Let's look at that. I think that was really fascinating.
So let's go back to that and then we'll come back. So,
okay.
So time is present with all the other elements, an essential part of the mix, but lacks a sensory access or affiliation, and has no special property. It is propertyless. Everything else you can define the property of it. It is hot or cold or small or big, but time you cannot define with anything. It is yeah.
So what is time? So the time's effect on one object is being compared to time's effect on another, and the comparison is itself taken to be time or a measurement of time. Such a brilliant, I really loved this. I mean, I've been thinking about that it's really just the effect on one object, and then when you compare it to its time's effect on another object, that comparison is taken to be time.
So like, for example, in our world, time is measured in based on the movement of the sun. And then we see throughout the civilization, people have come up with different instruments for measuring time. So, but actually it is not measuring time, it's measuring the time's impact on the sun, because of which the sun is moving and the earth is moving and all that. So, and then the impact of time on the watch itself.
Right, like, you know, when you go to Jaipur, in many places, you have these sun dials, right? These huge sundials. What are they really measuring? They're really just measuring the place where the sun falls and the shadow that it creates and the particular angle that it creates. And based on that, then time is calculated, right? So it's really like, you know, like this point is being made that it's actually the effect of the sun on a particular object and its movement. And the Bhagavatam, actually, there's a whole chapter where it talks about the calculation of time, you know, from the atoms, right?
And that's also like, how much time does it take for the sun to go over like 3 atoms? So that is like the smallest unit of time. But that is again,
because the sun itself
is controlled by time.
It itself is controlled by time. And that is the verse from Brahma Samhita, right? That all of these different objects are completely controlled by time. So the Bhagavatam proposes that the transformation, change, or movement of an object or element is the mark of time, not time itself. Time creates terror in beings and reduces their life, cuts asunder the hope of life in this world, and disperses people as the wind disperses clouds. On the other hand, time has no power over the Almighty God, whose sportive proclivities lead to the repeated creation of the universe.
So this is another point that is being made, that how time is also described as the Lila Shakti, which means as the pastime potency of the Lord. And this whole universe is created as a pastime of the Supreme, but at the same time, time has these two contradictory qualities. Although it is a pastime energy, but at the same time it creates terror in living entities.
Because when it comes in the material world, it's no longer a pastime. It is a time that is a tyrant, right? And it's controlling and forcing us to, you know, put our head down, right? It's so.
Maybe we can just show this and then.
Yeah, or do you think we'll be able to complete this
whole thing?
No. Can we just give us a minute? Let's see how many more slides are there. Huh? It'll be hard. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. So, you know, so this particular video is going to show us that how we really resist time. I mean, I know I do, you know, because it's like, you know, you want to get things done, and, you know, sometimes it almost feels like there aren't enough, you know, hours in a day. And so this is an island in Norway where, you know, they actually wanted to do away with time because, you know, let's watch it. It's quite interesting. It shows actually that there is a desire within each one of us for us to not be within the clutches of time. And because that is our real nature ultimately, right? In the spiritual world, we are not within the clutches of time. So even living in this material world, we really want to be free of the influence of time. If we could, we would.
From the time you were fertilized in your mother's womb, you have been on a race to keep up with time, beyond time and leaving time. Mankind is submerged in the continuum of time, and there seems to be no escape. Man has become a slave to time, from the first cockcrow to the last one. What if there is a way that you could actually kill time? Would you go for it? Would you bastardize the ancient pendulum of life? The people of Sumeroi, dwellers of a certain Norwegian island north of the Arctic Circle, would give an arm to be able to do just that. The Norwegian island wants to do away completely with the concept of time. And of course, they have a very good reason for it. Sumeroi is naturally blessed with an unusual indifference to times and seasons. In the island, its 350 residents do not see the sunrise at all from November to January, neither witness the sunset for 69 days from around May 18 to July 26th. The lack of daylight for a complete 3 months, followed by back-to-back sunny skies for about 2, puts an obvious twist in the typical cyclical way time is kept, with the sun coming and going every day on schedule. This is quite an esoteric reality for people around the world, but it has become commonplace to the people in the small island. The clock could strike 12 in the midnight and you'll still see the residents, men, women, and children, playing, working, and socializing as the sun shines above their heads. Sumeroi seems to have lost all reverence for time. At the entrance of the island, the first sight that greets tourists and visitors is a bridge whose railings is covered with wristwatches. The abandoned timepieces are reminiscent of the island's petition to make time a thing of the past. To this effect, the residents of Sumeroi started a campaign, and their official Facebook page has a post that reads, "Why do we need time and clocks when there is no night?" The Facebook post went on to point out the futility of time to regulate their lives, stating, "There's always less wind at night here. Perfect to paint the garage. Fishermen are out half the night. After all, if we get tired, we're fit to go after a nap on the sofa. Why don't we just sign out of time, throw away all the clocks and forget about them? Life would be so much easier." The Facebook post continues. Shell Ovu Vergin, a resident in the island and leader of the Time-Free Zone campaign, is of the opinion that the consciousness of time contributes to the level of stress and depression in the world today. In many cases, this can be linked to the feeling of being trapped, and here, the clock plays a role.
And yeah, we all feel like that, right? That time does control us, but then just by doing away with the clocks or the watches, we still don't do away with the influence of time, right? Because time is going to change our body. And in fact, in Ayurveda, and we understand that even in general, that our bodies actually have their own internal clock. So you can actually throw away the watch or the clock, but there is a body which works on its own internal clock. So this is actually something that as soon as we enter into this material world, then Krishna's control or this control in this material world is actually manifested through this time energy of Krishna. So there's a lot more actually, but we have run out of time. So it's 8:35, and I guess we'll continue this on Monday.
We'll take reflections and thoughts.
We don't have class tomorrow?
Tomorrow we're going to do Jeopardy.
Oh, Jeopardy. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you guys have a test. Not a test really, it's a game, fun game. So you can study that section and be fun. It's a very sobering topic.
I have a reflection based on the idea that we don't see time, we see time's effect on things. That if you extrapolate that idea, we don't resist time, we resist the rate at which things around us change or don't change. So they either change too fast or too slow for our preferences.
That's a very good point. Yeah, definitely. And we experience that a lot, right? That sometimes when we're enjoying something, then, you know, time goes by so quickly. And the reverse is also true. It feels like 3 weeks have passed since March, and also like 3 years. Yeah, that's true. Delia, because of the age we live in, things have sped it up, so it can seem like 3 years have passed in 3 months. It's interesting that from the time we are born, our time of birth is recorded, and we leave this material world. Our time of death is also significant. Yeah, these two verses are very interesting for us. I'm the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I'm coming soon. My reward is with me to repay according to everyone's work. I am the Alpha, the Omega, the first hand, the last, the beginning, and the end. Does time only impact us, or can we impact time as well? Wonderful. Wonderful. That's a really, really good, you know. And then, yes.
I have one reflection on time.
Yeah.
I guess it's a reflection come question. I guess time is probably, what I perceive is time is Krishna's manifestation, by which he is kind of proving that I am fair to everyone, because he gives equal amount of time to everyone, in the sense that 24 hours a day to everyone, and how you use it, you know, how you use Krishna or how you use time, you are rewarded accordingly. And the second thing is, time is not a very, time is a concept which is not, you know, universal. By universal, I mean it is not equal for everyone. In the sense, your perceivance, the way you perceive time could be very different from the way I perceive time. Like for example, some people age very fast, some people age very slow, right? You know, some people use their time, you know, in a different way. Some people see changes differently, at different paces. So time is it's not like, you know, 1 meter is 1 meter for everyone, but 1 hour is not 1 hour for everyone. It could have different meaning for different people.
Very nice.
Very nice. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, time has, and how we use that time also, right? You know, and I think that connects back to Dominic's question, that can we also affect time? Yes, and that is actually going to be our discussion, that how we deal with time and what our attitude is towards time can actually impact time. So, you know, our goal in spiritual life, in the process of bhakti, is to convert this limited time into eternal time, because ultimately that is one of the features of our essential self. There is Sat, Chit, and Ananda, which means that eternity, knowledge, and bliss. So in reality, we are eternal beings, but we are caught up in this sort of artificial cyclical time, right? Where we, you know, when we take birth and we grow, and then we, you know, grow older, and then we die. So that is not natural to the living entity. So by changing our attitude towards time, we can actually change how time can affect us.
So we can overcome, we can become victorious over time. Because time is Krishna's energy. We are also Krishna's energy. And Krishna says that if you surrender to me, then you can basically overcome birth, death, or time.
Actually, in the story of Puranjana, there is Kalakanya. And, you know, there is old age. And old age, you know, there is a Jara, right? And I'm forgetting the details, but they, you know, I think it's Kalakanya who wants to marry. You know, and so she's looking for a person who she can marry. And then I think she's told to go marry Jara. Old age, right? And so, and because she first approaches, I think the king, and the king is a celibate, right? So she cannot really approach him. So again, maybe we'll dig out that reference, so that we just want to be accurate on that. But the point being that it's only when we are, and there's a verse in Bhagavatam that we'll be discussing later, where it says that both by the rising of the sun and the setting of the sun, you know, time can actually reduce the duration of the life of a person, except for one whose life is dedicated to glorifying the Supreme Lord. So that's how we can actually impact time. So that's the
Hare Krishna.
Yeah,
hey, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I think there is, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, hi, yes. So I just had a reflection, because I was thinking about how, you know, being raised in Christianity, how they teach us that Satan wants to be just like God. in every way, like he's trying to replicate God in every aspect. And so, like, you know, when you think when I think about that, I think about time and how that's just another way of, you know, like just speaking from that perspective, it would be like another way of that energy, that negative energy to try to imitate the creator, but, you know, to imitate Krishna by coming up with time, like as far as like calendars and, you know, like the clock and stuff like that. But it's not really like what I feel like is the actual connection, like the actual natural time that is Krishna to me would be like the seasons. So, you know, so like we know what time it is according to the seasons, but then you have another aspect where we know what time it is because of the calendar, because of the fiscal year. So to me, it seems like a duality that's being played when I think about that. Like,
yeah, thank you. You know, when you were speaking, I was just thinking that one of the interesting points about the Vedic system of thought is that all of these, even Maya, you know, material energy, who in one sense has this thankless task of keeping us in this material world, nothing is separate from Krishna. So there is no second force that exists which is not which is happening independently or which is happening in opposition to Krishna. Everything is happening by the will of Krishna, by his sanction. So even when time seems to control us or time seems to take us, you know, in directions that we don't want to go, it is not that there is a second something that is a competitor that is sort of, you know, acting in a way that can distract us. So when we see everything in connection that way, then we can appreciate that even time is actually playing a function, you know.
Okay, okay, thank you for explaining that.
Thank you, Ashley.
Galia, your question is perception of time a function of the mind, the subtle body? Well, time actually cannot be perceived by any of our senses. Time cannot be perceived by the senses. Time cannot be perceived by the mind. Time cannot be perceived by the intelligence. Time period cannot be perceived. What we perceive is the impact of time on things. So we perceive the impact of time on our body. We see the impact of time in the world. And that's what our senses and mind is equipped to perceive. But time we cannot perceive. And then we always, in one sense, we always perceive time like indirectly when it is already past. So it's something very counterintuitive that we cannot really perceive time.
But then, you know, how do we understand the fact that we can, when we are, I guess, being present, right? So being fully present or being fully aware allows us to, I guess, experience, you know, the present moment, right? So that is, I mean, what we cannot perceive is the past and the future, but we can in some way experience our present moment, right? When we are fully aware of whatever it is that we are engaging with. So I guess, but the bottom line is that we're still not perceiving time, but I guess we're still experiencing our attention at that particular moment.
What we're focused on.
Yeah. We realize the value of time when we don't have enough time in the day to accomplish what we plan to, cannot go back in the past. Yes, and this is Chanakya Pandit. He said that even after spending thousands and thousands of rupees, one cannot get one moment that has passed, you know. So every moment that we spend is actually one moment gone that can never be brought back.
Especially like if we meet an accident, then even that 1 second, you can say if I could go back 1 second, then I could have avoided the accident. So the value of 1 second actually is perceived in meeting an accident.
Dominic, is time part of the material since it does not exist in the spiritual, but since Krishna defined himself as time, I'm not sure. Very nice.
Yeah, time is in the material realm, time is Krishna. This is Krishna's energy in the material realm to make this creation go around. This is the engine on which this whole material creation runs, right? But the spiritual world doesn't need time to run. Although there is morning and afternoon and evening, because Krishna wakes up in the morning and then he has his breakfast and goes out with the cows in the spiritual world. and he has a lunch at noon, and everything happens there. But not as we experience time here. Here, time is controlling everything. There, Krishna is just using time, which is our different nature in the spiritual world.
Time in the spiritual world is highly flexible.
Yeah.
Highly flexible. So when the gopis, when they go and meet Krishna, then one moment can extend to infinite. And then so it's like time just kind of, it's like, depending on what the need is, like, so simultaneously multiple seasons can coexist. So it's interesting because I was watching this documentary by Michio Kaku, and it's really, really fascinating because they talk about time at the level of the photon. And they say that, at those like micro levels, and I'm not a student of science, so I probably cannot repeat what he says, but it sounded so similar to the fact that time kind of the way time operates in a linear fashion starts to break down, and it starts to acquire a very different property. And I was thinking that, and then you take it to this other realm, the spiritual realm, where time is completely at the disposal of Krishna and his devotees.
So you can think of, in the material realm, the time is like a straight line, right? It goes in a straight line. But in the spiritual realm, you can think of time as a circle. So there is no concept of past, present, or future. Things can, like, you can go back and access the future, or you can go back and access the past, and it's not really controlling anybody. It's just like a tool or an instrument there just to help facilitate the past times. They have fun with it.
They have fun with it.
It's hard to grasp, actually. You can't really understand.
I didn't understand how time is the same as Shiva. Yeah. So, remember we showed how, Krishna glances over this mass, this homogeneous mass of material energy. And so he's lying there and he looks at that, and that glance is actually carried by Lord Shiva, because Krishna himself never comes in direct contact with material energy. So Durga, who is Lord Shiva's consort, is material energy. And so that's why we see Lord Shiva and Durga together. And Lord Shiva, it carries that glance and impregnates material energy, who's Durga Devi. And then from their union, all the living entities who have been actually placed, it's like putting the eggs in a bag of rice, and then the impregnation happens, and then they come out. So that's why, when Krishna says in the Bhagavad-Gita that I am the seed-giving father of all, that feature is actually Lord Shiva. So same way, this feature of carrying that glance and impregnating this material energy is actually the work of Shiva. And so that's why he's part of this material sphere, and he's
so Lord Shiva is also called the father of this material world, because he's like this. Original father is, of course, Krishna for everything, but then Lord Shiva becomes like the secondary father.
I think Anshul and Chita had a question. I hope they haven't left. I completely forgot. Oh no, they left. Okay. Yeah. Okay. The concept of constantly spending and earning time can be applied to other areas of life. Money is an example. Trying to hoard or possess anything in this world prevents one from moving forward. There must be constant letting go and picking up to continue.
Yes.
Yeah, time has to be used, money has to be used.
And so when we are actually coming together, chanting or doing anything in connection with Krishna, we are actually earning time. You can think of that as we are actually earning time.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
That is a really good point. Yeah, that even though, like sometimes I think about it, like, like when they say that there's certain food, when you eat them, you're actually burning calories, right? So,
Apple.
You get?
Huh?
Apple. They say that apple, one apple you eat, you basically take in 80 calories, but to digest that apple, you use 140 calories.
Really?
Wow.
Oh my God, you made me an apple eater from tomorrow.
Celery also, right?
Celery maybe, yeah.
Also right.
Oh, I should find out about this. This is amazing. So yeah, so same thing, that, even though we are using time, but then, we're actually gaining time. So this is the best kind. And there's a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, right? That says we'll do that. There's also actually a purport where Prabhupada talks about it, that when you, anything that is given to Krishna multiplies. Becomes eternal. And then Prabhupada in that purport, he says that when you give your time to Krishna, then Krishna converts that time into eternity. Right? So that is like amazing. So thank you. Great comments. Anybody else? Bhavani or with Pratibha? Otherwise, we'll stop here for some final moment. Naji, I'm sure this is a topic of your interest because I know you love.
It is a topic of my interest. You always call on me right at the end of the sessions. Let me see. I feel bad keeping everyone. I mean, I have some thoughts. I don't know. This is really kind of a big.
Okay, maybe we can do it on Monday. Can you hold your?
Yeah, I'll hold on to it. Yeah.
Okay.
You go first on Monday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when you don't speak, then I call on you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. All the best for your Jeopardy. I think you can memorize. Naji, you know which note. So those verses in the 10th chapter.
10th chapter.
Yeah, where Krishna is speaking about of this, I am this. Of
So I
this.
think it starts around like verse